Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about psychological perspective.
In psychology, the self refers to a person's perception of being a single, unitary, and autonomous entity who is distinct from others and who is experienced in a consistent manner throughout time and space. The conscious awareness of one's physically as well as one's inner character and emotional life are all part of self-experience. Psychology is the study of the mind in terms of observable behaviors and the internal workings of the brain. In essence, a psychological viewpoint is a method of observing and analyzing human behavior that might include a variety of ideas. If a person is robbed in a subway, for example, their future perception of the metro may be radically different from others that someone who is not had the same event. Psychologists are trying to figure out how the brain works and why people behave the way they do. There is no right or wrong perspective because each approach has its own set of strengths and weaknesses. Using different perspective can help researchers understand why a person chooses to behave a certain way. So now I'm going to talk about the 6 perspective of psychological viewpoint. First, I'm going to talk about psychodynamic perspective. So in this perspective, Freud believed that human conduct was linked to urges and forces inside the body and mind, the majority of which were unconscious workings. He also believed that these urges were dominant in childhood and that problems at various phases of development shaped a person's personality later in adulthood. He established this idea based on his experience with hundreds of patients suffering from anxiety and depression. Next is biological perspective. The biological perspective emphasizes a person's genetics and actual biology as a means of comprehending human behavior. Researchers uses MRIs, PET scans, and genetic factors in blood panels to look at the brain and body. Biological psychologists employ techniques like MRIs, PET scans to investigate within the body for solutions to behavioral questions. Cognitive perspective. This perspective uses the brain as a computer. Memory, language, attention, and thinking are among the functions that this method attempts to comprehend. Researchers that uses this method develop information processing models to better understand behavior. Many people feel that Albert Bandura, a psychologist, bridged the gap between behaviorism and cognitive psychology. Next, we have evolutionary perspective. The evolutionary approach examines human behavior as it has evolved over time. It asserts that the human body and intellect have evolved to better fit their circumstances. While acknowledging that biological components are crucial to understanding, behavioral changes are adaptations that have happened over time in order for species to survive. Evolutionary psychologists argue that contemporary human behavior evolves as means of adapting to a constantly changing environment. That isn't to suggest that features like instincts don't exist. Rather, they are part of evolutionary environment, yes. Researchers believe that they may acquire a better understanding of human behavior and personality traits by looking at behavior changes through time and their genetic components. Next is humanistic perspective. In this viewpoint, humanistic approach examines all areas of person's existence, focusing on the individual as a whole. The basic theory is based on free will and the notion that all persons have the power to change and evolve. Abraham Maslow's work centered on a hierarchy of needs that he believed everyone could endeavor to obtain and accomplish. He believed that if a person could get the essentials of life and be secure, they would be more motivated to work towards a good self-image. Humanism evolved from this research and philosophy as a reaction to past practices that many people considered restrictive and detrimental. Lastly, we have behaviorist perspective. In this viewpoint, this perspective considers a person's environment to be the cause of how and why he or she behaves in a given way. Behaviors think that all behaviors are learned and concentrate on what they can see rather what they can't see within the brain or body. Before this video ends, I would like to introduce myself. I am Francis Ethan Pondemira, a first-year AB Literature student of University of Eastern Philippines. Thank you.